Welcome the Lord's chosen. If you think your light is hidden, wait until you find out who's been watching you glow in the dark. Chosen ones, listen closely. There's a high-profile person, someone you didn't even know was studying your every move, who's not just impressed but low-key obsessed with two rare qualities you carry. Here's a fact. Studies have shown that people with genuine alignment and spiritual calibration are remembered longer by powerful people than those who simply perform for approval. Why? Because true resonance can't be manufactured, and your life carries that resonance. While you were minding your business, not chasing clout, they've been trying to decode how you remain unbothered while the world is busy performing. They can't Google this, and it's driving them a little crazy. And let's be real, you're the type they can't buy, can't manipulate, and can't predict. That's not just rare, that's terrifying for people who are used to controlling every room they walk into. Grab your tea, or your water if you're detoxing from drama, because today we're pulling back the curtain on why your quiet consistency is a magnet they can't resist, and how these two rare qualities you possess are forcing them to re-examine their entire playbook. Ready? Let's break it down. Number 1, you have a calibrated spirit that doesn't flinch under power. They've met hundreds of people who lose themselves the moment power walks into the room. Voices change, laughter becomes forced, energy shifts as people shrink, overcompensate, or fake confidence to impress those with influence. But you have a calibrated spirit that doesn't flinch under power, and it's throwing them off more than you realize. They're used to people trying to earn a seat at the table by morphing into whatever the room demands, but you carry the same calm, rooted energy whether you're speaking with a street vendor or a billionaire. And they notice it, even if they pretend they don't. You're not intimidated by titles, nor are you starstruck by status. You see power for what it is, a responsibility, not a pedestal. It's not that you disrespect authority, you simply don't worship it. You don't feel the need to over-explain yourself or inflate your identity to be taken seriously, and that confidence comes from a place that can't be shaken by someone else's resume or follower count. It's rare, and that's exactly why they're obsessed. They feel your energy is stable, measured, and unbothered, even in spaces where others are performing. While others get loud to be noticed, you remain consistent, and that consistency becomes a mirror exposing everyone else's performative nature. You're not easily swayed by charisma, nor do you get flustered when someone tries to flex their connections. You know who you are, and you don't trade that for temporary validation. You see them as human, not as gods. And that's something they crave but rarely experience. It's exhausting for powerful people to constantly wonder if others are genuine or just opportunistic. Your presence relieves them of that burden, even if they can't articulate it. Deep down, they know they can't buy your essence, and it makes them want to understand where your stability comes from. You're calibrated, unshakable, and quietly powerful in rooms designed to intimidate, and it keeps them coming back to your energy for reasons they can't fully explain. Number 2, you don't worship titles because you're rooted in purpose. They're used to people chasing titles like they're the ultimate badge of honor. CEO, pastor, prophet, influencer, artist, mogul. So many get caught up in proving themselves through labels that they forget to live with purpose. But you don't care about titles because you're rooted in purpose, and that's why they can't stop watching you. You're not impressed by status because you know purpose doesn't need a title to validate its authority. It's why you walk into rooms without the need to announce who you are, and yet everyone can feel it. They've spent years building an image to gain respect, while you're busy building character that can't be faked. They see you operating in your assignment without waiting for a platform to approve you. You don't need a stage to lead or a microphone to speak truth. Your life is your platform, and your alignment is louder than any title they can give you. This is what confuses and attracts them. They're surrounded by people who bow to their positions, but you treat them as equals, not because you're arrogant, but because you understand everyone is accountable to purpose in the end. When they try to test you with opportunities that look impressive on the surface but would compromise your values, you decline without fear of missing out. You're not desperate for what looks good if it doesn't align with what is right. And that's a power they can't replicate no matter how many connections they have. It's why your name stays in rooms long after you leave, and why they find themselves rethinking the way they chase influence. You're not fooled by the lights, the praise, or the recognition that comes with titles, and that makes them question why they're so attached to them. Your purpose is clear. Your direction is solid and your spirit is focused on what actually matters, not what looks good on paper. It's rare, and that's why they're drawn to you in ways they don't fully understand. Number 3, you possess discernment that reads motives like open books. They're used to people who get blinded by charm and charisma, falling for well-crafted words and public smiles. But you have a level of discernment that reads motives like open books, and it throws them off every single time. You can hear what people are not saying while they're busy trying to impress you with what they are saying. You see the intentions behind the invitations, the reasons behind the sudden interest, the hidden costs behind the opportunities, and the wounds behind the arrogance. This is not something you force. It's just how you're wired, and it's why they can't figure you out. They're used to people who can be manipulated with a compliment, but you don't fall for surface-level gestures. You pay attention to patterns, not moments, and you're not afraid to distance yourself when the energy feels off, no matter how beneficial the connection may appear. You don't expose what you know because you don't need to prove your insight to anyone. You watch, you listen, you take notes internally, and you let people reveal themselves fully while maintaining your peace. They can feel that you see them, the real them, even if you're silent about it. It's unsettling in a world where most people are too distracted to notice anything deeper than the surface. Your discernment is a mirror, and they can sense that their carefully crafted image doesn't fool you. This doesn't make you judgmental, it makes you wise. And that wisdom is what they find themselves respecting, even if they never admit it. You're not easily swayed because you're not desperate to be accepted by anyone. Your peace and clarity give you the ability to see people clearly while still choosing to respond with love, boundaries, and wisdom. They can feel that your interactions come from a place of alignment, not from a place of hidden agendas, and it forces them to evaluate their own. That's why they keep coming back, seeking your presence, your counsel, your perspective, even if they try to hide how much they value it. Number 4, your presence demands accountability without saying a word. They're used to being the standard in every room they enter, the ones others adjust themselves around, the ones who get silent nods and fake laughter just to keep the peace. But when they come around you, something feels different. Your presence demands accountability without you having to say a word, not because you're performing silence to appear deep, but because your life itself is a measuring rod that exposes what others are ignoring within themselves. They feel it even if they can't articulate it. It's the way you live in alignment with what you say you believe, not perfectly, but honestly. It's the way you move with integrity, even when nobody's watching, the way you refuse to betray your values for convenience, and the way your daily choices quietly reveal what actually matters to you. People can sense when someone's life is matching their mouth, and it disrupts the comfort of those who have built entire identities on performing for applause while living out of alignment in private. They notice how you own your flaws while still growing, refusing to wear masks to keep people comfortable. They see how you take accountability for your mistakes instead of hiding them behind curated words. It's this transparency that forces others to check themselves, even if they pretend they're unbothered. Your energy doesn't shame people, it simply reveals the gap between who they pretend to be and who they truly are. For many, that's more confronting than any lecture or public call-out could ever be. You're not trying to control others, but your standard holds a quiet mirror that causes people to reflect on their decisions, motives, and patterns. It's not about being better than anyone. It's about being true to yourself, and that truth has a frequency that can't be faked. They sense that around you, mediocrity can't hide behind excuses. Your presence reminds them of what they're capable of if they would stop settling for less. And deep down, that's why they keep coming back around your energy, hoping to understand how to live with that level of unapologetic alignment. Number 5, you embody consistency they can't manipulate. They're used to people shape-shifting the moment attention or opportunity walks in. One day someone is humble, the next they're performing arrogance just to fit into a room they prayed to enter. They see people change opinions, switch convictions, and adjust personalities, all for crumbs of validation or a hint of status. But when it comes to you, they can't get you to morph. Your energy doesn't bend just because someone important showed up. Your values don't change based on who's watching. Your posture remains steady whether you're in a hidden place or standing in the spotlight. And that stability is something they're not used to. They've tried to test you with silence, with praise, with passive-aggressive challenges, and with opportunities dressed as shortcuts. But nothing makes you switch up. It's not because you're stubborn for the sake of ego. It's because your alignment matters to you more than applause ever could. You don't crave validation enough to betray yourself, and they feel that every time they try to pull you into the unspoken games others play for attention. What they don't realize is that your consistency comes from deeply knowing who you are. You're not trying to perform goodness or strength, you are simply living from the inside out, which is rare in a culture where people are addicted to image over integrity. This consistency exposes how easily others trade who they are for who they think people want them to be. And it's uncomfortable to witness for those who have built entire personas on approval. It's not that you're unkind or disconnected. It's that you refuse to betray your spirit for temporary belonging. They notice how your words match your actions, how your convictions don't dissolve under pressure, and how your authenticity doesn't fluctuate to fit the environment. Your life tells people, this is who I am, whether you understand it or not. That level of consistency is something they can't manipulate, and it keeps you valuable and unforgettable in a world where people sell themselves for access. Deep down, it makes them wonder what it would be like to live with that kind of freedom. Number 6, you operate with depth in a culture addicted to performance. They're surrounded by people who know how to perform the right words, wear the right brands, and craft the perfect image for the algorithm. Everywhere they go, it's about optics. Who's watching, who's recording, who's impressed. But then there's you, operating with a quiet depth that feels like a direct challenge to the culture of performance they're accustomed to. You don't need to broadcast every act of kindness for likes. Nor do you need to package your growth into trending sound bites for clout. You simply live what you say, and that's far more rare than they'd like to admit. They notice how you can walk into a room and your presence holds weight. Not because you're loud, but because your spirit carries substance that doesn't need an announcement. You're not addicted to being seen, so when you are seen, it's impactful. You aren't afraid to sit in silence when others fill the air with empty talk to sound relevant. Your life reveals that it's possible to live authentically without having to convince everyone you are. They watch how you aren't swayed by trends or what's popular if it doesn't align with your spirit. You aren't against growth or excellence, but you refuse to sell your depth for cheap approval. You choose purpose over popularity every single time. And they can't figure out how you're so free from the pressure to be seen. It challenges them to rethink what success really is. They're used to people curating moments for performance, but you create moments that carry genuine impact. You live what others only post about. You practice what people tweet as aesthetic quotes but never apply. And when you speak, it comes from lived experience, not borrowed language, and that's why it pierces through the noise. They can't stop analyzing how you live with this level of authenticity because it exposes the emptiness in branding without substance. Your depth is disruptive, and even if they can't say it out loud, it makes them question whether the image they fight to maintain is worth the parts of themselves they've had to abandon to keep it. Number 7, you have access to joy that isn't purchased or performed. They're surrounded by people who need something external to feel alive, a new deal, another compliment, a stage, or a social media high to remind them they matter. Their happiness is rented, not owned, and it shows. But when they come around you, they sense something different, something they can't buy, no matter how many zeros sit in their account. You have access to a joy that isn't purchased or performed, and it pulls them in even if they can't put their finger on why. Your laughter isn't strategic, it's real. Your peace doesn't depend on who likes you this week or who's mentioning your name in rooms you haven't entered yet. You don't need a certain outfit, a platform, or the right circle to feel valuable, and that freedom makes you unpredictable in the best way. They're magnetized by your ability to carry genuine joy in seasons others would consider insignificant. You're able to find moments of gratitude while others are constantly restless for the next big thing, and that inner stability is rare. They notice that you don't chase experiences to escape yourself. You're at peace with who you are, so you're able to enjoy what you have without turning it into a performance. Your joy is not loud for attention. It's quiet and contagious, and it lingers long after you leave a room. It exposes how often they've traded real happiness for shallow highs that expire the moment the applause stops. They find themselves wondering why you seem so satisfied without the constant chase. They've learned to measure their worth by how much attention they get, while you've learned to measure your life by how aligned you are with your purpose. They see you smiling genuinely in moments that have no audience, and it makes them question what they're missing. They can't replicate it with luxury or public validation because what you have is an inside job. Your joy is not a tool to market yourself. It's a byproduct of living in alignment, and that's why it's unshakable. It's a freedom they crave but can't buy. And it's why they're drawn to you, hoping to understand how you've tapped into something so real in a world so fake. Number 8. You're unbothered by losing fake access for real integrity. They're used to people doing anything to get in certain rooms, saying whatever needs to be said to keep a connection alive, and bending their morals just to stay close to power. They're surrounded by people who will sacrifice integrity in exchange for an invitation, a photo, or a name drop. But you're unbothered by losing fake access for real integrity, and it shakes them more than you realize. You don't fear missing out on opportunities if they require you to betray your spirit. You're not afraid to let go of connections that drain your peace, even if they could benefit your image. You know the cost of pretending to belong somewhere you don't align with, and you've decided your integrity is worth more than being liked or included. They can't understand how you walk away so calmly, without resentment or dramatic exits, when others would do anything to hold on. They've tried to test you, offering opportunities that look golden on the outside, but come with strings that would pull you out of alignment, and you've quietly declined without explanation. You don't need to make speeches about your boundaries, you simply live them, and they notice. It fascinates them because they've spent so much of their lives curating relationships for leverage, not realizing they've been selling pieces of themselves in the process. They see how you can genuinely celebrate others' wins without secretly wishing you had their access, because you're not driven by envy or scarcity. You trust the timing of your life, and that makes you immune to manipulation. You know that real access comes from alignment, not desperation, and you refuse to abandon yourself just to sit at a table that costs you your peace. Your willingness to lose fake access for real integrity is a rare kind of strength in a world addicted to association. It reminds them of what it would feel like to live free from the fear of rejection, to trust that the right doors won't require self-betrayal, and to know that peace is more valuable than any connection. And that's why they keep watching, hoping to find that level of freedom within themselves. Number 9. Your mind is uncolonized by their opinions. They're used to people adjusting their beliefs just to keep the peace or to remain liked in certain circles. They've seen people water down convictions, flip perspectives, and stay silent on what matters just to keep their seats at tables that cost them their voice. But your mind is uncolonized by their opinions, and it unsettles and intrigues them all at once. You're not out here looking for applause before you decide what you believe. You don't need to check who's watching before you speak the truth that sits in your spirit. You don't dilute your thoughts to fit the moment, and you don't crave validation from people who can't handle your depth. This mental sovereignty is rare in a world where everyone's waiting to see what's trending before forming an opinion, and it gives you a freedom many don't even realize they need. They notice that you listen with an open heart, but filter with wisdom. You don't reject correction, but you won't abandon your discernment to fit in either. Your posture isn't rooted in rebellion for the sake of being different. It's rooted in authenticity. You've decided you would rather be misunderstood than misaligned, and you've made peace with that. This rattles those who rely on conformity to keep people around them predictable and controllable. You can walk into a room full of powerful people and still hold your perspective, not in arrogance, but in quiet confidence. You can disagree without disrespect, and you can hold conversations without performing agreement for the sake of false peace. It's rare, and they know it. Your uncolonized mind is a mirror to people who have forgotten how to think for themselves. It reveals where they've handed over their critical thinking to public opinion, where they've traded depth for acceptance, and where they've silenced their convictions to avoid discomfort. You're a reminder that it's possible to stand firm in what you know while still loving people well, and that standing in truth doesn't require you to be hostile, only honest. This is why they can't shape your worldview, and why they keep coming back, hoping to learn how to live with that same level of internal freedom. Because deep down, they want it too. Number 10, you don't flex power, you channel it. They're used to people using influence as a prop to feel important. Power, to them, is something to be displayed loudly, through the people they know, the money they have, the titles they wear, or the way they can make others feel small to appear big. They're surrounded by individuals who collect power like trophies, hoarding it to remind themselves and everyone else that they matter. But then there's you, and you don't flex power. You channel it, and it shakes them more than they will ever admit. You understand that true power isn't about controlling others, but about serving them from a place of wholeness. You don't need to remind people of your influence because your actions speak without needing a microphone. You see power as a tool, not a throne, and that's rare in a world where many crave leadership only for the perks it brings, not the responsibility it carries. You don't need to overshadow people to validate your strength. You'd rather empower them to see their own. They notice how you move with quiet authority, not demanding respect, but naturally receiving it because your presence carries alignment. When you enter a room, you don't have to dominate it to be felt, and you don't have to silence others to be heard. You use your resources, insights, and voice to build others up, rather than to control their movements. This challenges those who have made power their identity because your life shows them it's possible to lead without becoming a tyrant. You're secure enough in who you are that you don't mind sharing opportunities, teaching what you know, and celebrating others without fear of losing your place. Your confidence isn't performative and your strength isn't loud. It's consistent, steady, and rooted in purpose, not ego. People feel safer around you because they know your influence won't be used against them if they disagree with you or if they have a moment of weakness. They're left questioning why they feel the need to prove themselves through force, while you prove yourself through fruit. Your life exposes the fragility of those who hoard power to feel significant because it reveals that real significance doesn't come from lording power over people, but from lifting others with it. This is why they can't stop watching you. Because you don't just carry power, you steward it. And in a world where power is often abused, your ability to channel it with integrity is a disruptive, rare reminder of what true influence looks like. And number 11, your loyalty is to alignment, not attachment. They're used to people holding on to them for dear life, even when the connection has expired, even when the season has shifted, even when staying is costing them their peace. They've seen people tolerate mistreatment, disrespect, and shrinking roles just to keep access or a sense of belonging. But you're different, and it's something they can't quite process. Your loyalty is to alignment, not attachment, and it challenges everything they've come to expect from the people around them. You don't cling to what no longer serves your spirit just because it's familiar. You don't stay in spaces that require you to betray yourself to be accepted. You don't water yourself down to keep the peace or hold on to relationships that demand your silence in exchange for proximity. You can deeply love people and still walk away if staying means you have to abandon your alignment. This isn't because you're heartless or cold. It's because you understand that real loyalty begins with remaining loyal to your purpose. They're used to being surrounded by people who endure dishonor just to say they're connected to them. They're used to people ignoring their own discomfort to maintain closeness. When you release what no longer aligns, even if it hurts, it disrupts their expectations because they're used to their presence being the prize everyone is afraid to lose. You remind them that no matter how influential someone is, if a space is requiring you to shrink, it's not worth it. Your ability to walk away doesn't come from bitterness. It comes from clarity. You don't burn bridges, but you don't camp out on them when you're being called to cross into your next season. You can love people from afar if that's what alignment requires, and you can honor memories without forcing yourself to stay in expired seasons. This confuses those who mistake attachment for loyalty because you show them that love and letting go can coexist. They see that you won't sacrifice your peace for a seat at any table, and it makes them question the tables they've been fighting to stay at themselves. Your commitment to alignment over attachment shows them what it looks like to live free, even when it costs you comfort. And deep down it makes them wonder how they too can live that honestly. And number 12, you can sit at their table without needing their table. They're used to people coming to their table and losing themselves in the process. The moment someone gets a seat in these spaces of influence, they start shifting how they talk, exaggerating their stories, and performing for approval. The table becomes their identity, their measure of worth, and their source of validation. But you? You can sit at their table without needing their table, and it's messing with them more than they let on. You can access influential spaces, shake hands with people others would idolize, and leave that room still knowing exactly who you are. You don't get drunk on proximity to power. You don't become a different person to keep your seat. Your internal posture remains firm whether you're hidden or seen, celebrated or ignored, included or excluded. This level of groundedness is rare in rooms where people are addicted to being noticed. They notice how you observe quietly without trying to prove you belong. You don't hijack conversations to sound important or drop names to showcase your worth. You listen, you contribute when it aligns, and you leave without needing to broadcast that you were there. You understand that being in a room doesn't define you because you carry your value wherever you go, and it's not for sale. They see how you honor the opportunity without idolizing it. You're respectful but not desperate, grateful but not groveling. You don't compromise your principles to impress, and you don't silence your truth to avoid discomfort. You're not intimidated by influence, and you're not swayed by proximity to status. That steadiness is magnetic to people who are used to being surrounded by those who morph to keep access. Your ability to be in these spaces without becoming intoxicated by them exposes how many people are enslaved to rooms they prayed to enter. It reminds them that freedom is not in gaining access, but in keeping your identity intact no matter where you are. Deep down, they know that your internal authority is what gives you true influence, and it's why they find themselves respecting you, even if they never say it out loud. You can sit at their table, but you don't need it to define you, and that's why they're obsessed, because they wish they could experience that kind of freedom too. Number 13. You turn insight into impact, not just inspiration. They're surrounded by people who talk a good game, who post deep quotes and tweet about growth, but live unchanged behind the scenes. People who collect insight like trophies, stacking knowledge without ever living it out. But you? You turn insight into impact, not just inspiration, and it's what sets you apart in a noisy world. You don't just get a revelation and leave it on your notes app for aesthetic captions. You study it, you live it, you let it change you, and you build with it. When something hits your spirit, you don't treat it like a motivational moment. You turn it into action, conversations, projects, boundaries, and disciplines that align your life with what you've learned. You don't just admire wisdom, you embody it. And that embodiment creates real shifts in you and around you. They notice that while others parrot words about healing, you actually do the uncomfortable inner work to break cycles. While others post about purpose, you take consistent steps, even in hidden seasons, to build what you're called to build. While people perform humility online, you practice it by how you treat people who can't give you anything in return. You're not addicted to looking deep. You're committed to becoming deeper, and that commitment is rare. They're used to people who consume content but never change character. People who memorize spiritual language but remain stuck in old patterns. When they watch you, they see someone who doesn't need to convince others of transformation because your life is the evidence. Your conversations carry weight because you live what you say, and your presence carries authority because your alignment is real, not curated. You're not satisfied with being inspired if it doesn't lead to impact. You don't chase emotional highs, you chase alignment, growth, and obedience to your assignment. And when you speak, it carries substance because it comes from lived experience, not borrowed language. It challenges them to look at their own lives and ask themselves why they're collecting insights they never apply. It makes them realize that it's not about how much you know, but how much you're willing to live what you know. That's why they keep watching, studying how you move, hoping to learn how to translate their revelations into real, lasting change the way you do. Number 14. You are spiritually unbribable. They're used to people folding the moment something shiny is placed in front of them. A platform, a paycheck, a promise of visibility, a seat at a table. Most people will compromise for it. They'll dilute their message, adjust their values, betray their discernment, and silence themselves just to secure the opportunity. But you are spiritually unbribable, and it confuses them, even frustrates them, because they've never met someone who can't be seduced by the very things that control others. You can't be swayed by compliments or deterred by criticism. You don't crave validation enough to betray your assignment for applause, and you don't fear rejection enough to stay quiet when you're meant to speak. Opportunities don't move you unless they align with your purpose, and you won't step outside your calling just to gain temporary clout that would cost you long-term peace. They've tried to test it, offering access, connection, influence. But when you sense the strings attached, you let it pass, and you do it without bitterness. They're not used to someone who would rather obey God than be liked, someone who would rather wait than rush into something that isn't aligned, someone who isn't desperate to be seen, even if it means hidden seasons that no one claps for. They've never seen someone so secure in what they're called to do that they're willing to say no to what looks good if it would pull them out of alignment. Your covenant with your calling is unshakable, and it exposes how many people have been selling themselves cheap just to feel important. It reveals how quickly people will abandon what God told them to do just to feel accepted by those who don't even live in alignment themselves. Your refusal to sell out for comfort or quick results reveals your trust in divine timing and provision, something they wish they had but don't know how to access. They see that your fulfillment doesn't come from the spotlight, but from obedience, that your peace isn't for sale no matter who's offering a deal. And it makes them realize how powerful a person becomes when they can't be bought, distracted, or manipulated by temporary opportunities. This is why they keep watching, because your unbribable spirit is proof that true freedom is possible in a world where everyone else is for sale. They thought power would impress you, but you're not easily impressed. They thought status would distract you, but you're not easily moved. They thought opportunities would seduce you, but your spirit cannot be bribed. In a world obsessed with optics, you carry the rare frequency of alignment, depth, and discernment that cannot be replicated. You walk into rooms without needing those rooms to define you. You sit at tables without needing the table to validate you. You embody a consistency that exposes the fickleness of performative loyalty, and your peace unsettles those who rely on chaos to feel alive. You carry a joy they can't manufacture and a clarity they can't manipulate. Your life, lived in hidden obedience, has become a mirror forcing even the powerful to examine themselves in your quiet reflection. You are the rare evidence that it is possible to live unshaken in a culture addicted to approval, to hold power and use it to serve, not control, to gain revelation and translate it into action, to be unafraid to release what no longer aligns, even if it costs you comfort, applause, or connection. They are obsessed not because you are trying to impress them, but because you are free, and freedom is magnetic in a world built on quiet cages. They keep watching because your alignment is a silent invitation for them to discover who they could be if they stopped performing and started living with integrity. Don't shrink to make them comfortable. Don't downplay your posture to blend in. Your consistency, your unshakable covenant with your calling, and your refusal to sell out are the very reasons your presence leaves a mark long after you leave the room. They're not just watching, they're learning, repenting, and rethinking because you've shown them what it means to truly live. Chosen one, keep living with this rare weight. It is your birthright, your assignment, and your quiet revolution in a world desperate for the real. And trust. The right doors will open for those who refuse to abandon who they are to walk through them. If this word found you, don't just let it pass. Let's keep building spaces where depth is normal, alignment is protected, and freedom is non-negotiable. If you're tired of surface-level noise and ready to keep growing in the rare frequency you carry, subscribe to the channel right now. It costs nothing, but it keeps you connected to what will keep you aligned and sharpened in your assignment. Like this video, if it confirmed what you already know about yourself and the calling on your life. Drop a comment below and let me know which point hit your spirit the most. Your voice could confirm someone else's breakthrough. And share this with another chosen one who refuses to sell out their calling for clout. We are building a community of people who are unshakable, unbribable, and unapologetically aligned, and you belong here. Subscribe, like, comment, and share. Let's keep disrupting the algorithm with substance and reminding the world what it looks like when chosen ones take their place, fully aligned and fully alive.